Good afternoon. This is George Sebastião, co-founder of EcoX. It's a pleasure to be here at this annual venture fund seminar at the Delta Marriott in Anaheim, California, organized by US Global Business Forum and organized by Kishore Kaul, which is a good long-time friend. During this, I'll be spending some time talking about the value that is brought by both AI and blockchain as a technology. So what I'm going to do is share the slides of my presentation. So the slides of my presentation should now be visible on screen. We're going to be spending the next 10, 15, 20 minutes together, during which I'll be talking about disrupting caused by AI blockchain technologies. When we talk about disruption, doing many IT and technology-related projects for the last 37 plus years, in the initial days, we talked about value above the line or value below the line. And typically, IT projects were designed to create savings for existing operations. In typical IT projects, we talked usually about 30, sometimes up to 40% savings by the use of technology. But today, we're looking at a much higher degree of contribution by these technology projects. Thus, we refer to the term disruption, and I'll try to highlight here what I mean by this disruption. So when we talk really about disruption, we primarily talk about the element or the importance of speed. That speed is critical to actually have the success of the impact that those projects will have on the existing business. Could be business, but it could also be government or e-government type organization. Many of you in your past may have used something known as the Rubik's Cube. And when we talk about this Rubik's Cube, for those that are really good, you probably could solve the Rubik's Cube in 5 to 15 minutes. Those like me, maybe not as good, may take you a day or a week to actually finalize the twists and turns until the puzzle actually solves. It requires lots of practice. However, when we combine some examples of modern technology, and I'm talking about visual graphics, I'm talking about AI, pattern matching, and robotics, what kind of impact we would have in solving such a solution. So let me show and play for you a short video to highlight the kind of impact when we talk about 10x, 20x, 50x. So that's the kind of savings or improvement that gets done by introducing these technologies.
Solving in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now played in the slow speed. And even more slower speed. What do we quickly realize by the impact of technology, especially when we're talking about AI and robotics, that impact can actually be massive. So we're talking about solving the Rubik's Cube no longer in 5 minutes, but actually in 0.38 of a second. So you can see it's almost invisible to the typical eye. However, the impact of technology may be substantial, but to actually achieve that impact, we need to understand the complexity associated with these technology projects. And what we realize is in many cases, technology projects are complex. So if we want to have the maximum impact, it's important to understand that technology and to actually simplify the complexity associated with those projects. That simplification will lead not only to better benefits, but it also leads to other side benefits. For example, simpler projects tend to have a better security footprint and much less chance of being hacked or being compromised during their operations. But like we say in every technology project, it's okay to have a solution, but everybody has a plan until they get hit. It's the famous saying by Mike Tyson. So no matter how many good is your plan, you need to have alternative ways to actually solve the challenges that are typically associated with these technology projects. So when we're talking about solving these technology projects, we have to look at three primary dimensions. One is the dimension of technology. In today's presentation, the elements that I'm covering are primarily AI and blockchain. The second dimension that is important is what we call the business model. So what is the business model by which these projects get delivered? So technologies like, for example, cloud services or crowdfunding allow you to change the business model by which the impact is actually driven. And the third dimension that is important is the exponential adoption curves. The more the adoption is quicker, the more successful the project will be and the greater the impact of that project. So when we combine these three dimensions, we'll realize how to optimize and maximize the impact associated with these projects, both in private industry as well as government. Specifically, in today's presentation, we're going to be talking about several technologies: AI, blockchain, sometimes also known as Web3, or associated with decentralization, and also associated with digital wallets or digital assets as well. But other technologies play an extremely important role as well. This includes social media, which has been with us for the last 20 years, mobile, which has been with us for a little longer. But you can say today, mobile is the device of choice. People no longer use desktops so much, or even laptops. And mobile today is the device that is not just your computer and your device for calling, but is your contacts, is your workflows, is your calendar, it's specific sensors for health, and much, much more. So it allows you to deliver a completely different experience. So cloud technology plays an important role. Internet of Things, or the sensors that actually generate the information that will be processed, for example, by AI. So there's IoT, which stands for Internet of Things, or IIoT, which is industrial IoT. But other important than that is what we sometimes call the customer experience. So the better the customer experience, the faster the adoption, and the better success that you'll have associated with the project. One element that we'll not spend too much time on today, but it's important to note, because everything is about data and about different platforms and different technology. It's about complexity, cybersecurity, or the protection of information, or the protection of privacy will be an important element in the success of these projects as well. So a future for, or the topic for a future discussion. When we talk specifically about adoption, we have many adoption curves. We can give you the example of Spotify or Netflix that took respectively 10 and 11 years to actually reach 100 million users. Much more recent, we have, for example, WhatsApp or Instagram that took much less than that. But more recent, we have an example of AI, which is ChatGPT, that without a single advertising, without single publicity, was able to go from 0 to 100 million users in merely 2 months. So what made this adoption curve so fast and so unique? One of the key elements that enabled ChatGPT to be successful is the accessibility of the solution to everyone and the customer experience. So the customer experience is very important to actually drive the best adoption rates. When we talk specifically about blockchain as a technology, it was a technology that was introduced to primarily provide two elements. One is an element of decentralization without a central point of authority, and another one is an element of trust. When we talk trust, that means it allowed us to transfer value between 2 points, 2 individuals, 2 organizations without any middlemen. So blockchain as a technology of trust and decentralization has many applications. It can be applications that are associated with e-commerce. There can be applications associated with digital rights, can be applications associated with record keeping or protection of valuable information such as healthcare. It can also be used to deal with security, especially in the world of what we call the modern fintech world. So it's rapidly changing all these industries together and transforming them to drive much greater degree of impact. Another important technology that has played a vital role in this transformation and disruption is AI, or artificial intelligence. AI has been with us for almost 50 years, which is actually quite a long time. But ChatGPT did in 2 months what 50 years of AI was not able to do. One can say it's just the user experience, but I think it's much more than that. It's the storage, computing, CPU, networking costs have been reduced substantially. And by making them much more affordable, we can now have much greater power in terms of storage of information, access to that information, being able to process that information in real time and in a cost-effective way. There's the drive, the capability of the technologies that enable AI to actually take place. One of the key elements associated with computing is what we call GPUs. And those GPUs are graphic processing units originally used for doing three-dimensional scaping of visualization in computer desktops or laptops, have been transformed in doing the computational associated with AI, actually creating and processing or number crunching all the data that is required to, for example, drive this new generation of large language models that are being used to power things like ChatGPT. But like every technology, and due to complexity and otherwise, there's good and bad points. So in the case of blockchain and in the case of AI, there's actually some shortcomings. In the case of AI, many challenges remain, things like associated with licensing and user rights of data and information, decentralization of AI, and transparency and contribution between the data and the AI model that is being generated. We want to ensure that the AI model that we're actually using today is the trusted one and not one that is actually going to provide us the wrong results or the wrong information. Otherwise, this will cause massive disruptions, but in the negative side towards the usage in the modern applications in government or business. I talked about AI, I talked about blockchain. I can talk about many other technologies such as XR, virtual reality, immersive technologies, other technologies such as robotics that are contributing to this technology disruption. So I always want to highlight to you the important element that it's not just about a single technology, but it's actually how we combine all these technologies together. And in a future session, we can highlight some of what I would call the top 10 or top 15 technologies that are actually together driving this massive disruption to the solutions that we're creating today. This enables us to create a whole new generation in investments, but also create a whole new generation that are much higher returns. Important element as well is what is the rate of change for different elements. Technology is changing very fast. However, people, business, and governments change much slower, what we call the disruption and the agility of those various groups. So anytime we are trying to introduce this new technology at a very rapid pace, we need to understand the elements associated with the social impact, the business impact, the legal and political impact to make sure that they all come together in a productive way. And summarizing the 10-15 minutes that I spent with you today to give you this deep insights into how these technologies are actually disrupting the new environments of today by causing exponential growth, 10x, 20x, 30x, 50x. Blockchain and AI are two of these technologies that are contributing substantially to this massive disruption. I also want to leave some extra time associated for any additional questions or queries. And for the questions or queries that we're not able to answer today, I'm more than happy to answer them in social media through channels such as X or Twitter or LinkedIn, which are some of my popular channels to actually support the user community. So it has been a pleasure to spend this productive, valuable time with you today as part of Kevin Kishore and as part of US Global Business Forum. Looking forward to meeting you at the next event.